Why, hello there, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jags, and we're talking about some exercise things today. This is part 3 of the health, fitness, nutrition tips and guidelines and whatnot as a freelance artist. So without further ado, let's talk about some weightlifting and exercising things. Alright, welcome to today's video. First off, I should put credit where credit is due. Some of the principles I am paraphrasing here are from one of my favorite lifting books, The 3D Muscle Journey, Muscle and Strength Pyramids by Mr. Eric Helms and colleagues. Even though those books are designed for powerlifters and bodybuilders, a lot of the principles there apply to just general health, lifting, exercise as a whole. So, without further ado, let's talk about point number 1. Alright, tip number 1 is adherence. What does that mean? It's just basically finding something that is 3 things, actually. It is practical. What are you physically and time capable of doing? So, if you would like to get stronger, what access to equipment do you have? Next is enjoyable. Do you enjoy the training program? Is there something that you want to get better at, like karate or something? And then flexible. Is it flexible to your lifestyle? Can you fit in exercise Monday, Wednesday, Friday? Or do you have a sporadic schedule like a videographer who might have to train on weird schedules because of shooting days and whatnot? So find something that actually is flexible with your lifestyle. So the biggest thing when it comes to thinking about choosing an exercise program is adherence. What can you adhere to? What's practical, flexible, and enjoyable? Alright, part 2 is volume, intensity, and frequency. What do those mean? Those are big fancy powerlifting terms, and to put it most simply, it's how much work you're doing. Volume is how much reps, set, and load you're doing. Your intensity is how much weight you're lifting or how much effort you're exerting, so to speak. And then frequency is how often you're training each muscle group. So general guidelines for freelance artists to start. 6 to 12 reps per exercise. So a squat, you could do 6 to 12 reps depending on how much weight you're doing. After that, number of sets per exercise should be around 2 to 4. 2 to 4 sets will be that nice sweet spot. Maybe less sets if you're doing a very heavy compound movements. More sets if you're doing something light like a bicep curl. And then frequency is how often you're training each muscle group. I recommend twice per week per muscle group. So if you train your legs on Monday, training your legs on Thursday would be a good idea. Now, how close should you go to failure? Because I know this is a question that someone will ask, and I'm hoping they ask. General recommendations for light movements such as a bicep curl or machines such as a lat pull down machine, etc., etc. I recommend going to failure once or once every other week. And the reason why is if you're a newer lifter, a lot of people significantly underestimate what they're capable of. So getting closer to failure will help teach you what your body is actually capable of doing. So what does that look like? On the last set of very light movements like a leg extension or a chest press machine, bring it to failure. Now, failure does not mean significant technical breakdown. Make sure that your first rep and your last rep look mostly the same. The biggest difference between your first rep and your last rep is the speed of the rep. If that rep is a grinder, it feels challenging, it feels hard, but you still have good technique, perfectly fine for light movements. For more complex movements like a lunge or a dumbbell chest press or a Romanian deadlift, I don't recommend going to failure more than once every 3 or 4 weeks, but getting closer to that limit that you have will help teach you what your body is actually capable of and really stimulate muscle growth. Finally, compound movements like a squat or a deadlift or a barbell bench press, I don't recommend going to failure unless you're training for a very specific sport such as powerlifting. So just keep it simple. 6 to 12 reps, 2 to 4 sets per exercise, and then train each muscle group twice per week. Next is programming and progression. When it comes to choosing a program, first, what do you want to get better at? And then find something that you can adhere to, going back to point one. So if your goal is to improve your cardiovascular abilities, then choosing some sort of marathon program will be a good idea. And generally speaking, those are built to add a mile each week or 2 miles each week. Same thing for lifting goes. Find a program, and I will have links down below for some ones I recommend, and then stick with that over the long term. And the goal is to think about what can you progress on in that program. So adding 1 rep each week is perfectly fine. Adding 5 pounds each week is perfectly fine. The goal is to make sure that you are stimulating your body to the point where you're forcing an adaptation, because at the end of the day, it's not the program that's magical, it is how much effort we're exerting and how close we're challenging ourselves to stimulate muscle growth. Our bodies are actually relatively simple. We just need to say, hey, we're at a point of homeostasis and we want to get stronger, and the way we do that is we step outside of our comfort zone, and the way we step outside of our comfort zone is challenging ourselves in the gym just a little bit so that we're not hurting ourselves, but we're doing enough so that it says, hey, we need to adapt to this new situation. So on week 1, if you're doing a dumbbell chest press for 3 sets of 10, then on week 2 you might do a set of 11, then a set of 10, and then a set of 10. Then week 3 you'll do 11, 11, 10. Week 4 you could do 11, or 11, 11, 11. And week 5 then you do 12, 11, 11, and just keep doing that over and over. If you're a newer lifter, you don't need to worry about deloading or taking super long rest weeks. Effectively, as long as you have some sort of rest day built into your program as well, you should be able to recover just enough. Last thing I'll mention is make sure that you do not skip your rest days. They are incredibly important, especially if you are further on into a training program. They are important because you need your body to recover and rebuild that muscle tissue, so don't forget about those. As far as frequency for training, maybe 3 to 5 days per week will be a perfectly fine spot to start with an intro training program. Last thing we'll talk about is exercise selection, rest periods, and lifting tempo. So exercise selection, first off, practice how you play. Practice how you want to play. So if you want to get better at karate, for example, then do karate and just make that your exercise of choice. If you want to get better at dumbbell bench pressing, then do that movement. There's such a thing as specificity, just being specific and intentional with your movements. As far as rest periods and lifting tempo, to start and on a surface level, don't worry about those things at all. Don't ask about it. The goal with rest periods and lifting tempo is to be consistent. If on week 1 you're resting 2 to 3 minutes between each set, week 2 try and do the same thing. Same thing with lifting tempo. If you have a tempo that you adhere to on week 1, where maybe on the down portion of the movement you go down 2 seconds and then you push up over 1 second, then you want to make sure you adhere to that lifting tempo as best you can over time. Especially if you add weight, that lifting tempo on the up portion, the concentric portion, will definitely slow down, but the goal is to maintain some sort of stimulus on the body over time. That's the big takeaway I want you to take away. Stimulate your body to say, hey, I want to adapt. But overall, I know I covered a lot here. What I want you to take away from this video is a couple points from each section. First, adherence. Find something that is practical, flexible, and enjoyable. If you don't do it, you can't make gains at all. And I'd rather you do something rather than nothing. Now, for volume, intensity, and frequency, I'll keep this simple. Per exercise, I recommend 6 to 12 reps per set. I recommend 2 to 4 sets per exercise, and then frequency, hit each muscle group twice per week, getting closer to failure on lighter movements like a leg extension and avoiding failure on big compound movements like a squat. As far as programming, find something that fits your goal and make sure you're adding a little bit each week so that you're stimulating your body to say, hey, I want to adapt, I want to get stronger. And then as far as exercise selection, practice how you play. Don't worry about resting and lifting tempo. Just make sure you have enough so that each set you're ready to go. I know I covered a lot here. Thank you very much for watching. I really do appreciate it because health and fitness as an artist who sits and animates keyframes most of the time is really important to me, and it makes me really, really happy that I can share some of this stuff and someone is hopefully being helped by this. So thank you very much for watching my face. I hope it was educational in some capacity. If it was, let me know in the comment section down below. Or if you have questions, comments, concerns, whatever else, leave it in the comment section down below as well. And feel free to hit me up on Instagram at JohnJagsKnee. And I will leave you with one more thing. Eat 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight and you'll make some gains. Bye, my friends. Bye.